All right, seventh graders, it's time to start our chapter on equations and inequalities. And so to do that, we need to learn a couple of properties and a couple of definitions. So I'm going to do some of the note sheet that you have in front of you, and then your job will be to complete the other two pieces after you kind of see what we're doing. So at the top there, I've just asked you to think about how you could rewrite a problem that looks like 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. I know that you all know the answer is 8. I'm not really looking for the answer here. I'm looking for a way that you could rewrite that problem. And when I say rewrite it, I actually mean that you're going to rewrite it in terms of actually a different operation. So can you change that addition problem to a different operation that would simplify the amount of work I had to do to get the answer? And so I guess what I'm asking is that, do any of you remember in elementary when you first learned to multiply? 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 really was 4, because there are 4 2's, times 2. There are 4 2's that I am repeatedly adding together. And again, that will give me that 8. So if I transfer that concept to this problem as well, 31 plus 31 plus 31 plus 31 plus 31 plus 31 will be 6, because there are 6 31's times 31. And again, I don't need you to calculate the answer, but this would be a much shorter way for both of these problems to calculate the answer and or to type it into the calculator. So remember that concept as we move into our first property, which is called the repeated addition property of multiplication. So again, I think this is going to go along very well with what we just talked about. Repeated addition, that's what we were doing. We were repeatedly adding a number, but it's also a property of multiplication. And so what this property states is that the property actually looks like this. If I had nx, that means I'm taking n times x. That would be equal to x plus x plus x, and then I'm going to do plus dot 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 and x to end it. And I know right now that that probably doesn't make any sense to you, but what that's telling me is that I am adding x n times. So we've started to use variables because we're moving into the algebraic part of our math curriculum. So we're going to take the second thing, whatever it is, number, letter, whatever it is, we're going to add that over and over and over until we have it written n, whatever this number is in front, times. So that's kind of what we want to explain down here in the meaning box, is that n times x really means to add x n times. So the number in front is telling me how many times to add x. And again, as we move into the next box, we will be looking at some examples, and hopefully that will help clarify this whole concept. But again, the meaning of the repeated addition property of multiplication is that when it says n times x, whether that's letters or numbers or a combination of both, what it means is whatever number's in front is telling you how many times you should add whatever it's multiplied by. So as we move that concept over here into our examples, if I gave you 3x, the 3 in the front tells me that I have 3 of them, and I have 3 x's added together. So it would be x plus x plus x. Another example might be for y. That's telling me I have y plus y plus y how many times? 4. So I have y plus y plus y plus y. The back thing, letter, number, whatever it is what I am adding. The front number is how many times. All right, so that kind of sums up that whole concept of multiplication, repeated addition. So when you see things like this, 3 times x, you can understand that that really means you're adding x 3 times, that you have 3 x's that were added together. The other thing that I'm going to do with you in this video is talk about this quadrant box that works with terms. And so the first thing we want to do is figure out what this word terms means. And when we don't know what a word means, probably the first place people think to go for is the dictionary to get a definition. And so I did that. I just went to the dictionary on my computer, and it actually has a really, really good, lots of definitions, but a really good math definition if you look far enough. It actually has a definition for that word in the mathematics curriculum. Each of the quantities in a ratio, series, or mathematical expression. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and use most of that definition as my definition of terms. Okay, so it was the quantities in a mathematical expression. It was the quantities in a mathematical expression, and I'm going to add just a little bit of clarification, separated by a plus or a minus sign. So it's all those individual pieces within any mathematical expression I write, but in order to separate the terms, they've put plus and minus signs in between them. So the things that are added or the things that are subtracted in an expression. So again, we might look at some examples to help clarify what this means for you. If I give you 6x plus 3y plus xy, okay, in this example, I have three terms. I have the 6x, which is one term. It's multiplied together, but it's one term because the plus signs are actually the signs that separate these. So I have 6x as one term, 3y as one term, and xy as the third term. So this one would have three terms here. Okay, if I do another example, I could look at 5y minus 4. In this expression, I have two terms. The 5y is the first term, the minus is what's separating my terms, my 4 is the second term. Okay, this box is really designed for you to fill in. Is there a way, if you don't remember what terms is there a way from what we've explained that you can type in there to remind yourself how you might remember that? Can you create an acronym? Can you compare it to something that you know in real life? It's just a vocabulary strategy that we like you to try to come up with. How are you going to remember this definition or this meaning of the word term? That concludes my part of the lesson. As you can see on the sheet, you have a property, which I would like you to figure out what that property is. Again, when you don't know, one way is to go to the dictionary, another way is just to Google it, and you're going to find lots of information about the multiplicative identity property of 1. So I'd like you to type in what the property is in terms of letters and or numbers, explain the property in words, and give an example of the property just as we did over here together on the repeated addition property of multiplication. Same thing when you get down here for coefficients. I'm going to need a definition just like we did for terms, examples of where coefficients are or problems where you could identify the coefficient, and then fill in these how to remember boxes because those are really for you. All right, thank you, and we'll see you tomorrow.